watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. A busy morning here across Central Florida, and so we're going to jump right into it. Want to let you know a little bit of what we have coming up later in the show. The Orlando Magic on the ropes after a Game 2 loss last night to the Boston Celtics. Couldn't take advantage of Jason Tatum not being on the court for the defending champions, and so the Magic now down 0-2 in that series. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. A House panel stonewalled in the Hope Florida probe, a meeting today that was supposed to last 4 hours in Tallahassee. Ended up lasting 10 minutes because the witnesses who were supposed to testify didn't show. We'll have more on that, plus Governor Ron DeSantis firing back into the investigation into Hope Florida as he held a news conference this morning talking about all the good he says that program has done. But we begin today by taking a look at the Stephan Sterns trial that we know has been pushed back as a judge weighs a decision on the evidence. We talked about this yesterday because of that suppression hearing where the judge is going to be considering whether or not to allow evidence specifically concerning from the cell phone of Stephan Sterns. This is in the sexual battery case that was originally slated to go to trial May 5th, that is now scheduled to go to trial in July. So a lot of interesting things in court yesterday, and as this case kind of moves forward, joining us live now via Zoom to talk about this is Lauren Cadillac, who is an attorney, the owner of Cadilac Law in Dallas, and also someone that we've spoken to before, specifically when we were talking a lot about Sarah Boone. And so, Lauren, we appreciate you joining us from Dallas this morning.
Thanks, Garrett. It's great to be here, and I appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning to you. I know this is a case that you are also following closely. Just kind of give me your reaction, initial thoughts to the hearing yesterday. Went on for several hours. As we heard arguments from the prosecution and the defense as to why this evidence from Sterns' cell phone should not be admitted into court.
Well, first, it goes a little deeper than just the cell phone. The suppression motion asked to suppress Sterns' cloud file, which, if you've been following this case at all, you know contained thousands of photos of him and Madeline in positions that no parent would want for their child. So it is important for the defense to try to get that out because that is the prosecution's case primarily. So here the defense argued that, well, they made a fruit of the poisonous tree argument. Okay, so they said, look, you got this phone, you didn't have consent, he was technically detained, you didn't, get the proper warrant, and anything that stems from the phone onward, including the data you retrieved because you knew about the stuff, because you knew the phone information, all of that needs to be suppressed. I think it's a good argument on the defense's part. And I think the judge taking time to consider and make his ruling shows that the defense made a good argument. It was especially poignant to me yesterday when the judge asked witnesses questions. And when you're sitting in a courtroom and a judge asks your witness something, based off that question, you can kind of know where the judge's opinion is going. So it will be interesting to see how this judge rules. I tend to think because he handed the phone over, he sat there while they searched through it, he never protested. I tend to think the phone information will be allowed, but maybe some of the information that followed would not.
And what impact would that have? I know you said this is a major this is major evidence in this case, specifically the sexual battery case, which is what at issue here. What else is there if that is some of that is thrown out?
Well, that's exactly the point. And that's why the defense is even moving to suppress this evidence. If this evidence is successfully suppressed, unless the prosecution has something else that we don't know about, these charges would basically have to be dropped. There's no way to prove beyond a reasonable doubt without all of that cloud data. Although I know there were some jail phone calls between Stearns and his parents, and those are somewhat incriminating. They could help. I don't think the phone calls themselves would prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and certainly not in the way that, hey, this is his cloud, these are his photos, gee, look how gross these are, would.
From your perspective as an attorney, we know these, motions like these are fairly common especially in cases like this that we follow. But from what it sounds like, some of the reaction necessarily from the judge is not something that we always see in things like this, as far as, like you said, him asking some questions of the witnesses, and then also taking nearly 2 months to kind of look over this and make a decision on this.
Yeah, it is interesting. We don't usually see the judges, well, in watching criminal prosecution online, we don't see judges ask questions. They do it all the time in civil court. But it is interesting to see that, and particularly the questions the judge was asking. He was asking the police about, the possession and searching through the phone, and his questions, though I don't remember his exact wording, they made me sit back and go, is he going to lean towards suppression? It is a very good argument the defense is making using the fruit of the poisonous tree. And that's the idea that if you obtain one thing legally and that thing leads to other things, all the other things are also obtained illegally, as they are fruit of the poisonous tree of the start of the illegal search. So it is a good argument on the defense's side. I thought the prosecution did really well in their questions, but based off the judge's questions, it did seem he was leaning a little towards the defense. I'm thinking that because of who the victim is here and the type of crime he's charged with, the judge would like to use an abundance of caution before before making his ruling. And so he's probably going to go back and read all the case law that they provided. He's probably going to go to his law clerk and ask them to do some additional research and kind of allow all of that to help him make his decision. And that is great. We don't want judges making decisions off of their feelings. Okay, that's not a judge's role. Feelings don't matter in a courtroom. And so a judge who's willing to step back and go, wait, let me check the law. Let me make sure I apply these facts to the law that is controlling in this case. That is exactly what we want to see out of our judiciary.
One, especially in a case like this that he knows is being closely watched, and knows that there are certain things that potentially could be under scrutiny in future appeals as well.
Exactly. I mean, this crime it's disgusting. It's gross. It's every parent's worst nightmare. And the judge is aware that his constituency feels that way because, he probably feels that way. Now, even though a crime is horrific and disgusting, as someone who is on American soil, you don't have to be a citizen, but if you're on the soil of this great land, you get due process. The Constitution applies to you, and the government has to obtain their evidence through legal means. So it doesn't matter how disgusting the person behaved or how completely shocked you are by it. And we'll say is alleged to behave, because it has to be proven that they behaved that way. What matters is that you are on American soil and our Constitution applies.
And the onus to prove that this is the onus when it comes to these suppression hearings, just for everyone's knowledge so we're on the same page, is the onus on the prosecution to prove that this evidence was obtained lawfully, or is the onus on the defense to prove that it was obtained unlawfully?
So in these situations, there is burden shifting. The defense has an initial burden, and once the defense shows that that could possibly exist, then the burden shifts to the prosecution. Then the prosecution has to show how it did not exist or how it was not illegal. And they did actually do some discussing in the hearing yesterday about the shifting burden, etc.
It's going to be interesting to watch either way as we kind of look ahead to the things that are going to be happening. We've got the timeline that I can pull up here. June 30th is when the judge says he will have that written ruling out. By July 2nd, the pretrial hearing, July 14th, the jury trial slated to begin, and then the September 22nd, when the capital murder trial is slated to begin. So going to be a busy summer for that legal team.
Yeah, if I were one of the attorneys, I would not be okay with this. If I need pretrial hearings by July 2nd, that's 3 days after the judge's ruling. How am I going to know? I mean, that's like, there's a lot hanging on this evidence in particular. And so I think, I think it's great to use an abundance of caution, but 3 days before your motions in limine need to be argued it does not seem prudent or just to me. Like, that really makes your defense team and your prosecution, everybody is going to have to go do this crazy dance for 72 hours. And who knows, if they'll actually be ready on the 2nd. That's a weird timeline when I review that.
So then you think if it is, if the judge does take that full time and doesn't come out with that ruling until June 30th, there could be a chance that trial then gets pushed back again?
Well, if he comes out and says the evidence is suppressed, then the prosecution is going to appeal that ruling, right? If he comes out and says this evidence is allowed in, then the defense is going to say, well, I need more than 72 hours to write my motions in limine to address all these other things, right? And I think it's kind of a lose-lose. Like, no side is going to be prepared 3 days later. If they are, congratulations, you guys have figured this work-life balance out beyond belief. But I can't imagine a world where your counsel could be prepared that quickly.
All right. Well, just another wrinkle in this to keep a close eye on. So Lauren Cadillac, the owner of Cadilac Law in Dallas, an attorney and an expert and a friend of the show here. We appreciate you joining us on Fox 35 News Plus. Always good to talk with you, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Same. Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning. A planned 4-hour hearing into Hope, Florida ended after just 10 minutes this morning in Tallahassee. That's because the witnesses who were expected to testify didn't show up. They apparently, according to the chair of this House Healthcare Budget Subcommittee, he said they learned just minutes before that the two witnesses who they expected to be there today, Amy Ronshausen, the executive director of Save Our Society from Drugs, and Mark Wilson, the chair of Secure Florida's Future, sent letters to them saying that they were not going to attend. We previously knew that Jeff Aaron, the attorney for the Hope Florida Foundation, was not going to be there today because of a previous conflict. This would have been the third, well, it was the third meeting of this subcommittee looking into Hope Florida, and at issue the $10 million donation from a Medicaid settlement to the Hope Florida Foundation that ended up in the hands of two political committees fighting the Amendment 3 effort to legalize marijuana that was on the ballot last November. The chair of this committee, Representative Alex Andrade, a Republican from Pensacola, said today at the meeting that there was no question these were Medicaid funds steered by the governor's chief of staff, who at the time was now Attorney General James Othmeyer, to his own political action committee. He made allegations today of money laundering and wire fraud. In this meeting today, he outlined his findings, the findings of this committee so far, and also criticized the governor's lack of concern about this issue.
Quorum is present. Chair Andrade.
Declining. All right, members, thank you all for being present. Before we begin, please make sure that all cell phones and other communication devices are turned off or on silent. Members, before we begin what appears to be a very short meeting today, I think it would be helpful to review what we've discovered over the course of the past 2 committee meetings and in reviewing the records that we do have available to us at this point. First, on December 28th, 2021, the state entered into a contract with the law firm of Liston & Dees to assist them in obtaining restitution from the managed care company Centene over a nationwide dispute related to their pharmacy benefit management program. Beginning in February of 2022, James Othmeyer met with representatives from Centene on at least 3 separate occasions to discuss the state's claim and the possibility of settlement with Centene. On February 7th, 2023, attorneys for Centene sent a letter to Liston & Dees outlining why they believed that a settlement in the amount of $67,048,611 would be fair for both parties. Within their letter, Centene identified the different lines of services in Florida for which the state may have had a claim. Included in those lines of service were Florida Healthy Kids, Medicaid, Medicare Part D, Centurion, and Florida's health insurance exchange plans. It appears from the letter that Centene did not believe they were liable for any damages to the state for any lines of service other than Florida Healthy Kids. On March 16, 2023, the state notified Liston & Dees that it would be terminating their agreement and handling the claim against Centene in-house. Then, due in part to the fact that we have not received any documentation from any state agencies or the Attorney General's office to this point, it appears that nothing happened on this claim for over a year until September of 2024. That appearance of inactivity is further bolstered by the fact that on September 27th, 2024, the state and Centene executed a settlement agreement for the exact same amount proposed by Centene in February of 2023. $67,048,611. Notably, the state removed the claims of Florida Healthy Kids from the final settlement. Unlike every other state in the country, no announcement was made by ACA or the governor's office informing the public of this settlement. The lack of an announcement is not the only aspect of this settlement that is unique solely to Florida and also suspect. After reviewing several other state settlement agreements, it appears that Florida is the only state to direct a portion of their settlement amount to a charity, let alone a charity spearheaded by a governor's spouse. As you are all aware, sometime in early October of 2024, Centene wired $10 million to DCF's direct support organization, the Hope Florida Foundation. a foundation which, up to that point, had only raised $2 million and had never issued a grant greater than $50,000. From the testimony we heard last week, no one at DCF was notified of this transfer, and the foundation was not consulted prior to the transfer being made. On October 11th, James Uthmeyer, identifying himself as the governor's chief of staff, cold called Amy Rosenhausen, the executive director of Save Our Society from Drugs. On that call, Uthmeyer informed Ms. Rosenhausen that the Hope Florida Foundation had resources available that he told her could be used in their mutual campaign against Florida's Amendment 3 ballot initiative. This is significant because the board of the Hope Florida Foundation itself had not yet been informed that they had received this $10 million wire transfer. It appears that Uthmeyer had a similar conversation with Secure Florida's Future's executive director, Mark Wilson, who happens to also be the executive director CEO of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Because on October 13th, Josh Hay, the chair of the Hope Florida Foundation's board, received an unsolicited request for $5 million from Mark Wilson and Frank Walker. This was about 24 hours before the board meeting where Hay informed the board that the foundation would be giving Mr. Wilson the grant he requested the day prior. If you recall, Mr. Hay testified under oath that it was Jeff Aaron, the board's attorney, who informed him before their October 14th meeting that this grant was deemed beneficial to the governor's office and who assured him that this should be done. As you will also recall, it was Mr. Aaron who told Mr. Hay on October 14th to obtain permission from the board to issue grants without prior board approval or oversight. I find this concerning because, as you can see in our packet, Jeff Aaron became legal counsel for the foundation on October 14th. 4 days after the board meeting, on October 18th, Amy Rosenhausen sent Jeff Aaron a nearly identical, unsolicited request for $5 million. And on October 22nd, with the help of Jeff Aaron, $5 million was wired out of the foundation's account and directed to Save Our Society from Drugs. From his text messages with Ms. Rosenhausen, Mr. Aaron misled Ms. Rosenhausen into believing that this grant was being given with the full approval of the entire foundation's board. This was impossible because the board was never informed of her request. Between October 17th and October 29th, Secure Florida's Future, an arm of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, transferred $3.75 million to James Uthmeyer's political committee, Keep Florida Clean. Between October 23rd and October 28th, Save Our Society from Drugs transferred $4.75 million to the same political committee controlled by Uthmeyer. These amounts far exceed the Hope Florida Foundation's permitted limits on expenditures for lobbying, let alone campaign activities. In response to these revelations, Mr. Uthmeyer and ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, have embarked on a disinformation campaign. Mr. Uthmeyer expects us to believe that he had no knowledge of the settlement terms, despite his heavy involvement since 2022 in the negotiations. The fact that he would have had to permit ACA to execute this settlement as the governor's chief of staff, the fact that no public announcement ever occurred related to this settlement, and the fact that he personally informed Ms. Rosenhausen of the location of these funds. Similarly, regarding the letter that I received from ACA's attorney this week, I'll note that it does not mention the FMAP share amount that has already been reported to CMS, or the fact that no other state, nor CMS itself, agrees with his legal interpretation. Simply put, there's no question that these were Medicaid funds, steered by the governor's chief of staff through secret and clandestine actions to his own political committee. Members, I want to thank you all for your engagement and encouragement these past several weeks. As policymakers, it's readily apparent that a culture of neglect, incompetence, and entitlement exists within the halls of the governor's office at this time. The purpose of these meetings has been to obtain the information necessary for us to frame our decisions as the legislature. When the executive exhibits no care or concern for the misuse of taxpayer dollars, we as the legislature have an obligation to everyday Floridians to be even more vigilant. We're not judges or prosecutors. While I'm firmly convinced that James Uthmeyer and Jeff Aaron engaged in a conspiracy to commit money laundering and wire fraud, and that several parties played a role in the misuse of $10 million in Medicaid funds, we as legislators will not be the ones making the ultimate charging decisions. We're here today to hear from two 501c4 groups about their own interactions, and I had hoped to learn more facts and details about what occurred. However, after today, regardless of how quickly we conclude this meeting, I believe our work on this topic in this capacity as a subcommittee will be concluded. As you will note, neither Ms. Rosenhausen nor Mr. Wilson are here today. They both, minutes prior to this meeting, declined our invitation. Ms. Rosenhausen stated that she was concerned about giving up privileges and legal liabilities. I have not read Mr. Wilson's letter declining our invitation. However, I will note to any member of the Florida Chamber of Commerce that it does appear from everything indicated by Mr. Wilson that they were complicit and had full knowledge of what they were doing in the misuse of these Medicaid funds. I would be extremely concerned as the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Members, before we conclude, I'll open it up for comments. If anyone has a comment or a question. Seeing no comment. Representative Redonda moves you rise. This meeting is concluded.
Serious allegations there from the chair, Representative Alex Andrade, a Republican from Pensacola, as they wrap up the House probe into Hope, Florida, as those witnesses failed to show today. Meanwhile, Governor Ron DeSantis held a news conference as well in St. Augustine, where he was talking about Hope, Florida, and its mission. The First Lady spoke as well. We also heard from several recipients of help from Hope, Florida. But in the question and answer portion, when reporters had the chance to ask some questions, the governor was asked directly about ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, and the $10 million donation to Hope, Florida. And here's what he said.
So ACA put out the letter with all the documentation. So I would just look at that. It totally debunks the bogus media narratives that were out there. ACA had to do this. They did it appropriately, and it advanced the policies of the state of Florida. And I think those were very important documents to see.
Do you have a response, though, to those lawmakers that are still, trying to ask those questions about just the support?
So the documents that ACA put out, they were told this was coming. Partisan journalists were told this was coming, and they still tried to produce these phony narratives. Then the documents came out, and it showed basically what was done by ACA, how they negotiated it, and it also even had the documents from the company. So that debunks the phony narrative. Why are they doing the narrative? They're not doing it because they really care about that. They're doing it to try to impugn Hope, Florida. They're trying to smear this program. Some of them, some of these lefty journalists don't like it. They don't like you working with the faith-based community. Some of these people, view it as a way to attack the First Lady and all the great things she's done because they view her as a threat. So that's what's motivating this. And so the reality is this has done an enormous amount of good, and I'm proud of the program, soup to nuts.
Well, the questions into Hope, Florida, certainly not going to end. Representative Alex Andrade indicated that, even though the current work of that subcommittee that has been looking into it likely has come to an end. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, the headline continues to be this drought that we're in and the ongoing risk of these wildfires and brush fires that we continue to see.
Indeed, Garrett. And as of this Thursday, the once weekly U.S. Drought Monitor update has come out, and unfortunately it paints a pretty bad picture. In fact, we're seeing the first extreme drought in that red coloration that we've seen in our region since 2017. You've got to go back to spring of 2017, 8 years ago, the better part of a decade, to find conditions this parched across central Florida. Now, back in those days, there were issues with some spring crops germinating for the summertime. There just simply wasn't enough rain. And it's conceivable that in crops in areas that aren't irrigated, that we could see a similar kind of a situation. Now, 2017 was unique as well because later that year, Irma came through, and that did further devastation to many Florida crops. So there were a lot of losses that year from drought in the springtime and then the hurricanes later on in the year. As far as our region goes, we've also seen the severe drought in Orange expand southward now to include Seminole and parts of Orange counties. So the burn risk out there is going to only increase. Because of that, just about every county in our viewing area is under a burn ban, and this goes all the way south into Fort Myers, Lee and Charlotte counties. The only county excluded from the burn ban in our viewing area is going to be Osceola and Sumter counties. Central Marion County as well, but parts of southeastern Marion County are bordering that burn ban. They may be added to it as well now that we've got the extreme designation applied. So this is a pretty significant occurrence, and what can happen with these major droughts is that the water table below the ground starts to go down because there's a lot of irrigation being used for the farming, and that creates empty cavities in the limestone, which can lead to sinkholes. So that's another thing to think about as we look ahead to the next several weeks until we get the groundwater levels rising with the return of the rainy season. Sinkholes, just another hazard to put on the map. We're going to be dry here for at least the next 4 days before we catch a welcome chance for some rain. Now, the dry season is nothing new here in Florida. It's totally normal. This is the time of year that we are driest. We get our least precipitation. And because of that, we also have our fire season, which is this time of year. It's all normal. Florida's ecology has actually evolved over the millions of years to depend on the dry season and depend on wildfires. It's kind of a counterintuitive thing when you consider, obviously, the inconvenience and the threat, frankly, from fires, right? Because we've built homes and neighborhoods right on that urban-rural interface, and when the rural areas burn, as they're really designed to do, they really are. They're designed by nature to burn. Every couple of years, maybe every 4 or 5 years, these areas burn. Obviously, it becomes a threat to these neighborhoods. So here we are again, and there's no sign that things are going to improve anytime soon. In fact, when we do get some lightning next week, that's actually going to cause more fires. And lightning is the driving force for forest fires in Florida this time of year. We're going to have a warm day today, 87 in Orlando, 91 degrees in Bushel, and about 82 at the coastline. The sea breeze keeping us a little bit cooler. It is a great day to be out on the beach. You can see the Jeeps there. It is Jeep Beach. That's the event they're calling this, the week of 25,000 Jeeps on the beach. Weather couldn't be better at Daytona. About 82 degrees will be the high temperature this afternoon. Now, looking ahead to that rain chance. We've got a front coming in on Monday, and it's a weak cold front, but it should be enough to kick off about a 30% chance for some rain. We'll see some scattered showers, maybe a rumble of thunder. The front will sweep away the moisture for a few days. It'll be dry for Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. But looking ahead, once we enter the month of May, the first weekend of May, Saturday, that front will also push an area of high pressure that's been deflecting weather systems away from us, allowing lift in the atmosphere and storms to form with daytime heating. So we're going to see a rainy season pattern with the heat and humidity of the day leading to afternoon thunderstorms starting Saturday, May 3rd, and continuing in earnest into Sunday, May 4th. We could have a lot of rain coming up here as we look ahead to not this weekend, but next weekend, which will definitely help in our drought situation, but obviously comes with the lightning risk I'd mentioned, causing new fires. But we're going to be in this pattern for, looks like, the first 2 weeks of May. So that's going to be good news as far as a needed pattern shift for our region. Meanwhile, in the next 7 days, we're going to be hard-pressed to find much rain. Certainly no rain through the weekend, but as we get into Monday, that's our chance with that first front coming in for a 30% chance for a couple of showers and storms. Ultimately, that front boots out that deflecting high-pressure ridge and allows for an establishment of an early rainy season setup for us. Garrett, typically the rainy season doesn't begin until about May 25th. Sometimes it can take until June for it to actually set in. And it looks like this year we may be on track for for that to set in a little bit later on. The earliest rainy season in recorded history for our region dates back to the early 1960s when it was officially declared by about May the 5th. So it can come earlier, but that's usually dependent on area water temperatures. You know, if the Gulf is extremely warm or on the Atlantic side, if the Atlantic is unusually warm. Right now the Gulf is a little bit warmer than normal, but the Atlantic's a little bit cooler than normal. So we'll see. It's a fine balancing act in the world of climate, but it really is kind of a counterintuitive relationship with fires versus homes, right? I mean, this is the time of year that Florida has to burn. If it doesn't, the gopher tortoises, the eastern indigo snakes, various species of jay birds, as well as the longleaf pine, some sedge grasses, saw grasses, some wildflowers. If it doesn't burn, those species cease to exist. So, yeah, it's one of those things. We got to learn to coexist with it.
Yeah, it's a complicated relationship.
That's a good way to put it. It's a rocky relationship.
Yeah. Well, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
You bet. Thank you, Garrett.
As we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, leave you with a view of downtown Orlando. You can see Lake Eola there on this Thursday morning. Keep it here on Fox Local. We have more to come right after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning, live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and on YouTube. Let's talk a little theme park here as we look ahead to the weekend and some opportunities, some things to keep in mind coming up. And also some fun events going on. So joining us live now to talk about all this is Theron White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info. Theron, good to see you this morning.
Hey, I'm always happy to join. I hope you're having a great day.
Thanks. And Theron, we're starting with some news of some upcoming discounts at Disney for annual pass holders. What do we know?
So yeah, if you are currently a Walt Disney World annual pass holder, you're about to get some amazing discounts when it comes to their table service, sit down, and character dining at Walt Disney World. Starting May 14th all the way up to July 31st, you can get up to 40% off of a lot of Disney's dining locations. And this does include character dining like the Tusker House that's at Disney's Animal Kingdom. These are buffets, you can meet the characters and you can get, autographs and all that stuff. And I mean, a 40% discount is great. That's usually something you only ever see for cast members.
Yeah, that's substantial for sure. And there's also so we know with the return of kind of the pass holder days, there is also the pass holder lounge coming back at Epcot.
Yeah, that is going to be in the Morocco Pavilion in the World Showcase area of Epcot. So this is a nice lounge. You get to go in, you get some free water, some teas, some sodas. Last year, they even had characters that would show up periodically. But even if that doesn't happen, this is just a great space to go. Sit down, lounge, be in the air conditioning. They have spots to charge your phone, especially as a pass holder, because we're not trying to run around do every single thing every single day. I thought this was great last year, a nice way to just and relax while you're in Epcot, because sometimes, especially during some of those festivals, it can be a little harder to find your seats. This was a great way to kind of chill out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out. Morocco is one of my favorite places to be in Epcot anyway.
I totally agree. That one in the Mexico Pavilion, go back and forth, is my favorite. I love the
Yeah.
theming in there. I love the food. So this is a good spot to put it.
All right, something to look forward to. Something else to look forward to, the return of The Lion King at the Dr. Phillips Center, which is opening.
That is correct. It actually began last night. It's going to continue today, and it's going to go all the way until May 18th on select days and select times. This show has been seen. They sent this over. Over 100 million people have seen this show worldwide. It'll be my first time seeing this tonight. They've invited me out to go and check it out at the Dr. Phillips Center. If you've never been to the Dr. Phillips Center, it is a truly gorgeous place to be able to go and see a large-scale production. But yeah, I mean, this is The Lion King. It's one of the most famous Broadway shows of all time. We have it here in Orlando, so you don't have to go all the way up to New York. When I was looking at a majority of the ticket prices, it was usually about $110 to $160 for the ticket, depending on where you're going to be sitting.
It's an iconic show, and like you said, a great venue for something like that right here in Orlando.
Yeah, especially if you've already seen and loved the Lion King show that's currently at Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. This is just a much longer, much more in-depth version. Of course, great performers for both of those shows.
And let's also talk the Lego Festival at Legoland, Florida.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting. So for any kids that have seen this, and they've probably already heard, they're going to be bringing Lego Fortnite and Lego Fortnite characters to Legoland, Florida. In total, this Lego Festival is going to have 5 different event zones that are going to be in the park. This entire event, this festival, is going to be included with standard admission, but I think the one that's going to sell a lot of these kids is going to be called the gaming zones. You can meet Lego Adventure Peely as a full-size character. You can run up, you can hug him, you can take photos. And then they're going to even have some models of Lego Fortnite characters inside of the space as well. Obviously, Legoland is a big, big fan for kids, and I think adding in this Lego Fortnite element is going to be a smash hit.
And a lot going on at Legoland, because we know there are some other things in the works as well, with some new additions coming. So Legoland is kind of stepping up here.
Absolutely. So soon they're going to be opening up their Sea Life Florida Aquarium. It's a very large, very themed aquarium. It's called the first theme park under the sea, where they're actually going to have a section where you can go around and see black-tip reef sharks. And in that area, they've built a legitimate theme park, in a sense, under the water, made out of like man-made coral. That'll be very cool to see. That's also going to open up this summer. And included with that, with all the stuff that they're doing and all the stuff that they're building and events and such, they're also selling a summer pass, which might be a really good sell for some of your Florida residents. It's $124. It starts as of today, goes all the way up until September 12th with no blockout dates whatsoever. So you can visit the park anytime until September 12th. And for an additional $29, it also adds on the Peppa Pig theme park, the water park, and the Sea Life Florida Aquarium. So if you're someone especially that lives around in that area, kind of in the Lakeland around-ish area, that would be an amazing pass for the summer. You and your kids could go again and again and again with no blockout dates whatsoever.
And what makes the Lego Festival a great time to go check out Legoland?
Yeah, so this is the first time they've ever done this festival for Legoland. They've had some of their big time events. They've got Brick or Treat during Halloween and their Christmas events, but this is a first for them. What's going to be nice is with these 5 different zones, there's some areas that are called like the chill zones, where you can go and just kind of relax and do some stuff. There's these building areas where, of course, you're at Legoland. You're going to be able to build with a bunch of different characters. They also like trade out minifigures, kind of like if you're at some of the other theme parks and they trade out pins. If you didn't know, you could go to Legoland and bring little Lego minifigures and trade them with some of the employees that are in the park. And so there's those areas that kind of add some interactivity to it. There's going to be, of course, some entertainment when it comes to that. There's also going to be specialty food and more stuff to explore. It's going to start on May 3rd, so I'll be able to head out there and kind of give you exactly what they're doing. But these 5 interactive zones, new food, new entertainment, and of course, you're inside Legoland, so there's a ton of rides and other attractions as well.
Yeah, certainly unique, and sounds like a fun event. Darren, it always seems like there's always something going on at the theme parks around here, especially as the weather gets warmer, more visitors start to come, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there is truly always something to talk about when it comes here to the Central Florida attractions.
All right. So, well, Darren White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info. We always appreciate you joining us and making sure we stay up to date with all the theme parks happening. So we appreciate you.
Of course, always happy to join.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning. The Orlando Magic have their proverbial back against the wall just about after dropping the first two games in the playoff series against defending champion Boston Celtics. Jason Tatum did not take the court last night for the Celtics, but that didn't help the Magic much. They lost 109-100. Paolo scored 32. Franz Wagner scored 25. But the Celtics really dominated the rebounding and three-point shooting as well. But the Magic are back at the Kia Center on Friday, hoping to avoid a sweep in this series, at least hoping to put up a fight. We heard from head coach Jamal Mosley last night.
A lot of adversity that we fought through, which I like for what our guys did in that situation, regardless of the circumstances, they continue to fight through. That's the resiliency of this group, the toughness of this group. Did not come out on the other end of it, but our ability to continue to fight regardless of what was happening. And again, give Boston credit. They did what they were supposed to do, take care of home court.
Well, what challenges did your team face defending without fouling tonight?
I'm not the one to answer that question. I promise you I can't answer that one right now. I think there were some things that you'd like to look at and say differently. I'm not one to complain about any of it. But there's a reality that, all of our starters had 2 fouls at one point quickly. And there was a time it was 16-2 in the free throw count. That's part of how the game goes. And that's what we got to learn to push through and fight through, and that's what these guys did. Now, when we get to the free throw line, we got to knock them down too. Can't miss 9 in a 9-point game.
Looking at Boston with Tatum out, they went big with Horford. What effect did the size that Horford and Porzingis provide, especially with the kind of switching that you guys are trying to do to limit three-point shooting?
Well, I think it was Jaylen Brown that got going more than anything. I think it was him covering some of the switches. He got downhill quickly, made some tough pull-up threes, but that's what he's capable of doing. And so in those situations, being able to adjust to what he's doing, going after him a little bit. We got a couple turnovers on him when we went after him. But again, I don't know if it was that much of them going big, other than, we knew that somebody was going to step up, and it happened to be Jalen in this situation.
What was challenging tonight for KCP? He shot 0 for 6 from 3. I'm just curious how you get more shooting from him in Game 3.
I think, he's defending his tail off, running around, flying around. I mean, they're running him off the line. They're flying at him, highly contested shots. And I think, his ability is to keep finding it, keep stepping into it the same way that we know he can.
Coach, what stood out to you about Anthony Black's performance and 11 points? And how do you want to see more production from your bench as you get back to Orlando?
Just aggression. When they step into that game, you gotta walk in there fearless. You got to walk in there understanding exactly the moment that you step in the game, it's about attack mode. Defensively, you got to be ready to pick up full court, make them turn, make them have to make adjustments. And then offensively, when you get that ball off the glass or the rebound or a stop, we got to look to push that out and get on the break and play a lot faster with a lot more pace.
What did you think of the team's pace in this game? It felt like you guys were trying, kind of forcing pace into the game early on, but you obviously score a few more points. Get maybe some of the shots you wanted. What did you think of the way that the team attacked on offense?
I loved our aggression. I really do. You look to get to the paint 36 times, 46 points in the paint. The ability to get downhill. Could we play faster? Absolutely. I think we can definitely get downhill more, and I think that's what we're going to have to continue to look at doing, because they do a great job of loading up. But if we can play before their defense is set, before they get to the switching, the matchups, the zone, all those things that they're doing to keep you off balance, you do that before the defense is set is very important for us.
Jamal, is there anything you can pinpoint as to why you guys have struggled in the third quarter in these first 2 games?
I think we come out, we got some great looks early. They didn't drop, and a lot of those allowed them to get early, easy transition baskets. And I think that's something that we got to continue to look at. When those shots don't fall early, we got to make sure that we're still digging in on the defensive end. Long shots were long rebounds, and they were able to get out. But again, we'll dissect it, look at it again on film, and be ready to go.
I thought we played with a lot of heart, a lot of character. They made a bunch of runs throughout the game. We never gave up. We played real physical. Thought we were a great effort all game.
What do you think isn't clicking for you from 3 for these first 2 games?
I don't really know what to say. They're not going in.
Do you like the looks you're getting, or?
Yeah, felt really good. Honestly, kind of surprised that a couple of them didn't fall.
We talked a lot over the last few days about increasing the team's pace and tempo. You obviously scored more points. The team scored more points today, but did you like the way that the team was kind of getting after it offensively, or getting up the court quicker today?
Yeah, I thought you can tell that we looked at the film from the first game and made that an effort today. Getting the ball a little quicker and just getting into our stuff a little faster. And I think you could see the results too. No, it's not going to be perfect all game, but didn't shoot it great from 3. I think if a couple more of those fall, I think it's going to be a different game.
What do you see on the team's difficulty defending without fouling?
Yeah, I think that was another thing today. Offensive rebounds and fouling, especially in the first half. They put so much pressure on you from the 3-point line that sometimes we were spread out a little bit too much, and then no got on the ball, isn't trusting his help anymore. So, for the most part, I thought we did a good job guarding the 3, and sometimes you just got to trust that, the man's going to be behind you.
On the topic of fouling, what's the balance between trying to be very physical and aggressive without setting them to the free throw line?
Yeah, I think it depends. Just where on the court it is. Usually they let you play pretty physical on the perimeter. But once guys get into the paint and kind of pick up the ball, that's when you got to show your hands.
We know how good this Boston team is. They're gonna go on runs on occasion. How difficult is it, or what needs to happen when they kind of land those punches and hit maybe 2 or 3 threes in a row and kind of extend that lead? What needs to happen in response to those?
Yeah, I think we just got to keep playing our game. obviously those possessions offensively after those runs are really important. Not extend the lead even more. And then I think also when they struggle to score, I think we'd capitalize a little bit more. And, obviously sometimes you're going to have bad shooting nights, but we're going to shoot better at home.
On that point, how helpful will it be to return home?
Yeah, it'll be good. Last year was really fun playing at home, so hopefully we can get game 3 at home and make it a series.
As well as KCP is playing on defense, how does the team get him more involved in the offense, given his ability to shoot?
Yeah. Run some plays for him. Obviously look for him on the kickouts. Obviously they're making an effort to not let him get any easy looks from there. And sometimes you're gonna have nights like this, and we're gonna be better in game 3.
Piggybacking off that, Franz, how much can the atmosphere at home, make a difference to your offense?
Yeah, I mean, we're all human, you know what I mean? It's always easier when people are cheering you on, so hopefully we see that next game.
And what did you think of Jaylen Brown's performance tonight?
Yeah, he played a hell of a game. Obviously real efficient. Hit a couple of tough shots from 3. And he's a great player. We just got to make sure that we keep making it tough on him and not send him to the line as much.
7 p.m. tomorrow, tip-off against between the Magic and the Celtics in Game 3 of the first round of of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So we'll be keeping an eye on that, cheering on the Magic, hoping for a win tomorrow night. I want to let you know we are out of time here on Fox 35 News Plus. We plan to start Florida Live this afternoon a little bit early because of a planned news conference. Senator Rick Scott meeting with some Venezuelan community leaders in Tampa to talk about the fight for freedom and democracy. That's scheduled to start at 1:45. We will begin our show when that begins, and we've got a lot planned for Florida Live this afternoon, so we hope you join us and keep it right here on Fox Local.